Welcome to the deep dive. So, you're here because you want to really level up your fitness, right? And one thing that keeps popping up, I bet, is creatine. You've probably heard about it, but maybe felt a little overwhelmed with all the sciencey stuff and the different types out there. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of noise, that's for sure. And that's exactly what we're tackling in this deep dive, cutting through the clutter. We're going to be using Best Creatine for Beginners, Complete Guide 2025, as our roadmap to break down creatine in a way that actually makes sense, especially if you're just starting out.
Awesome. So let's start simple. What is creatine really? Like when you get down to it, what are we even talking about?
Okay, so basically, creatine is this natural compound that's already in your body, mainly hanging out in your muscles. Its main gig is helping to regenerate a molecule called ATP adenosine triphosphate, if you want to get fancy. Now, ATP is like the primary fuel your muscles use for those quick bursts of energy, like when you're lifting heavy or sprinting. Imagine it as the immediate cash your muscles use to power those movements.
Gotcha. So it's like a quick energy boost for those intense moments.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Creatine as a supplement has been studied like crazy for decades. It's not some fad. It's one of the most well-researched performance enhancers out there, period.
That's good to hear. With so many supplements on the market, it's hard to know what to trust. For someone new to all this, like a fitness newbie, what are the real, tangible benefits of using creatine?
Well, for someone just starting their fitness journey, the perks are pretty straightforward. You're looking at potential increases in strength and power, which can really help you push further in your workouts. It also helps your muscles recover faster between sets and even between workouts, which is huge. And over time, consistent creatine use can lead to more muscle growth. There's even some research suggesting it might have benefits for brain function, but most beginners are probably more focused on the physical stuff, which is fair.
Yeah, makes sense. So stronger, faster recovery, more muscle. Sounds like a winning combo. And you mentioned all the research behind it. That's definitely reassuring.
Absolutely. And, unlike some supplements where the research is iffy, creatine has consistently shown that it works, and it works well. And it all comes down to its role in that ATP energy system we were talking about. When you're working out hard, your ATP gets used up quickly, right? Creatine steps in and basically helps recycle that spent ATP so you can keep going at that high intensity for a bit longer.
Makes sense. It's like a little extra push when you need it most. Now, the guide we're using mentions different types of creatine, which I think is where things can get a bit confusing for people, like monohydrate, HCl. What's the difference? Does it really matter?
You're right, it can get overwhelming. You see creatine HCl, buffered creatine, liquid creatine, even creatine ethyl ester. But here's the thing. For beginners, pretty much everyone agrees that creatine monohydrate is the way to go. It's like the gold standard.
Gold standard. Okay, what makes monohydrate so special?
Well, for starters, it's the most studied form, hands down. We have mountains of research backing up its safety and effectiveness. Second, it's usually the most affordable option, which is a big plus. And importantly, it's consistently shown to be effective in all that research. Plus, it's super easy to find and use.
So are those other types just like marketing gimmicks, or do they actually offer any real advantages, especially for someone starting out?
Some of them claim to be better absorbed or have fewer side effects, but the research really points to monohydrate being the most reliable, especially when you're just starting. There's even this quote from a Reddit user that sums it up nicely. Ensure you're using creatine monohydrate specifically. A daily dose of 5 grams is all you need. It's quite straightforward. And I think for someone new to this, simple and effective is exactly what you want. Stick with monohydrate unless you have a very specific reason, maybe later on when you're more experienced, to explore other forms.
Keep it simple, I like it. Now, how much creatine should someone actually take? I've seen stuff about loading phases and daily dosages. What's the best approach for a beginner?
Dosage is important, you're right. Most experts recommend a daily dose of 5 grams of creatine monohydrate. This amount seems to work well for most adults, no matter their size. You might see some recommendations for a range of 3 to 5 grams per day, maybe adjusting based on your body weight, which is also reasonable.
5 grams a day, all right. What about this loading phase thing? I've heard you take a much higher dose, like 20 grams a day for a week or so at the beginning. Is that really necessary for someone just starting?
Okay, so the idea behind a loading phase is to basically supercharge your muscle creatine levels right off the bat. You take around 20 grams a day for the first 5 to 7 days. It can get you to that saturation point faster, but it's not essential, especially for beginners. And honestly, it can cause some stomach upset for some people.
So it's like a shortcut, but maybe not the most comfortable one.
Exactly. A lot of experts and experienced users recommend a more gradual approach. Just take those 5 grams every day consistently. It'll take a bit longer to reach full saturation, probably about 3 to 4 weeks, but it's much easier on your system. Like one user even said, just stick to the consistent 5 grams each day. It gets the job done without any fuss.
Consistency seems to be the key here. What about when you take it? Does it matter if you take it before a workout, after a workout, or at some other time?
That's a good question, and honestly, the timing isn't super important. The most crucial thing is taking it daily to keep those muscle creatine levels topped up. Me personally, I just mix my 5 grams into my morning protein shake. It's easy and I don't forget. But really, any time that works for you and helps you remember to take it consistently is fine.
So don't sweat the exact timing, just make it a habit. The loading phase is optional, maybe not the best for newbies. Okay, the guide also has this big list of different creatine products, which can be kind of intimidating. What should a beginner look for when choosing a product?
Yeah, that table is a good starting point, but it can be a lot to take in. You'll see variations in price, obviously, serving size, and then you have all these different certifications. Some products emphasize things like overall quality, affordability, or being good for specific diets. It's helpful to see the range, but let's focus on a few top recommendations for beginners and break down why they stand out.
Perfect. Let's start with Thorne Creatine. The guide called it the best overall quality. Why is that?
Thorne is definitely positioned as a premium option. One big thing, especially for those concerned about purity, is that it's NSF-certified for sport. This means it's been thoroughly tested for banned substances, which is crucial if you compete in a sport where you get tested. It also speaks to the quality and consistency of the manufacturing process. It might be pricier, but that certification gives you peace of mind knowing exactly what you're getting.
So that extra cost is for that added assurance of quality and purity. Now, what about a more budget-friendly option? I know that's a big factor for a lot of people, especially if they're new to supplements.
Absolutely. For beginners on a budget, Nutricost Creatine Monohydrate is a fantastic choice. It offers great value without sacrificing quality. It's made in an NSF-certified facility, and they do third-party testing, so you know it's reliable and pure. Their unflavored version is especially affordable, like ridiculously cheap per serving. As the guide says, Nutricost Creatine is an outstanding budget option, particularly for beginners looking for quality without breaking the bank. I think they nailed it with that description.
Sounds like a solid option if you're looking for a good deal. Now, Optimum Nutrition is listed as most recommended by fitness enthusiasts. What's behind that reputation?
Optimum Nutrition is consistently praised across tons of fitness forums and reviews. It's just a brand a lot of people trust and have had success with. They offer creatine monohydrate in both powder and capsule form, so you have options there. Importantly, their powder also has the Informed Choice certification, which, like NSF, means it's been tested for banned substances and meets high-quality standards. We even saw some Reddit comments where people were specifically recommending Optimum Nutrition based on their good experiences. One person said, "I've been using Optimum Nutrition for quite some time now and have never encountered any issues with their products." And another mentioned using it along with another popular supplement. So it's definitely a go-to choice for a lot of people in the fitness world.
It's like the tried and true option, backed by a ton of positive feedback. Okay, last one from the guide. Naked creatine, they call it best for dietary restrictions. Why is that?
Naked creatine is designed for people with specific dietary needs. It's certified gluten-free and vegan, which is obviously important if you're following those diets. They also keep the ingredient list super minimal, just pure creatine monohydrate. That makes it a good choice for anyone trying to avoid extra stuff like additives, artificial flavors, or allergens. It's all about clean and simple.
Okay, that's a good roundup of options for different priorities. Now let's talk about the how-to. How do you actually take creatine? Any mixing tips or things beginners should expect once they start taking it?
Good point. For creatine monohydrate powder, it usually mixes pretty easily, especially the micronized kind, which is a finer powder. But, I saw this comment from a user who said, no matter which option you choose, it's crucial to ensure it is fully dissolved before consuming. I made the mistake of not blending it enough one day, and let me tell you, my stomach was in agony. So yeah, make sure it's completely dissolved in whatever you're mixing it with, whether it's water, juice, or your protein shake. A good stir or a few shakes in a bottle should do the trick.
Yeah, you definitely want to avoid that. Good reminder to mix it well. What about other things beginners might experience when they start taking creatine? Any noticeable changes they should be aware of?
A few things to expect. The most common one is a slight increase in body weight, usually around 2 to 4 pounds. That's from your muscles holding onto more water, which is just a normal effect of creatine. It's not fat gain or like bloating that makes you uncomfortable. It's the water going into your muscle cells, which can actually make you look a bit fuller and might even help you perform better. Another thing is, unlike pre-workout supplements that give you that instant energy boost, creatine works more gradually. It takes time to build up in your system. One user said, unlike pre-workout supplements, which provide an immediate energy boost, the benefits of creatine are more gradual. For instance, you might not feel any difference right away, but after 6 months of consistent use, you could find that your bench press has increased by around 10 pounds compared to if you hadn't taken it at all. So patience is key. You're not going to see results overnight, but with consistent use, it can definitely make a difference. And a lot of people also notice they recover faster between workouts and don't get as sore. Someone even said, personally, I've noticed quicker recovery rates during my workouts, along with reduced soreness afterwards.
So expect some water weight gain, maybe feeling a bit fuller, and gradual increases in strength. Gotcha. What about hydration? The guide mentions that drinking enough water is really important.
Yes, hydration is super important when you're using creatine. Since your muscles are storing more water, you need to make sure you're drinking enough to stay properly hydrated. The general advice is take up your water intake by at least 16 to 20 ounces per day when you start taking creatine. That helps keep everything running smoothly and can prevent things like muscle cramps. It's a simple but crucial part of creatine supplementation.
Okay, listen to your body and drink more water. Makes sense. Let's get into some common questions and concerns people have about creatine. First one, does the brand really matter? I mean, we've talked about some good options, but is it really that important to choose a specific brand?
That's a fair question. While we highlighted some reputable brands, a lot of experts agree that the most important thing is getting pure creatine monohydrate, no matter the brand name. But as we touched on with Thorne and Nutricost, quality control and purity definitely matter. Choosing an established brand that does third-party testing is always a good idea. That way you know you're getting what the label says and that the product is free from any weird stuff. So you don't necessarily have to go for the most expensive brand, but look for one with a good reputation and ideally some kind of independent verification.
Quality over flashy marketing. Got it. Another common concern is bloating. Does creatine make you bloat or look fat because of the water retention?
Yeah, that's a big one, and it makes sense why people worry about it. You will probably gain a bit of water weight, like we talked about, but it's not usually the kind of uncomfortable, puffy bloating people imagine. The water is mostly going into your muscle cells, so it makes you look fuller, not bloated. Standard creatine monohydrate at the recommended dosage doesn't usually cause that kind of problem for most people. If someone is getting really bloated, it might be worth checking their dosage or looking at other things in their diet that could be contributing.
So it's more about muscle hydration, not feeling puffy. Okay, last question. How long until someone actually sees results from creatine? We mentioned the bench press increase over 6 months, but what about more immediate changes?
Patience is super important here. That 6-month bench press example shows that some of the strength gains happen gradually over time, but a lot of people will notice some improvements in their workouts, like being able to do an extra rep or lift a bit more weight within 2 to 4 weeks of consistent creatine use. That initial water weight gain might be noticeable within the first week, which can make you feel a bit bigger, but the real strength and endurance benefits usually kick in after a few weeks of taking it consistently and training regularly. It's not an overnight thing, but with consistent effort in the gym and consistent creatine intake, you should start seeing positive changes within a reasonable time frame.
So it's a tool that works over time, not a quick fix. Right, as we wrap up this deep dive into creatine for beginners, what are the most important things you want our listeners to remember?
The key takeaway is that creatine monohydrate from a reliable brand taken consistently at 5 grams per day is a simple and effective supplement for beginners. The specific brand isn't as important as making sure you're getting a quality tested product and using it regularly.
Okay, let me recap those key points.
1, stick with creatine monohydrate. It's the classic, reliable choice for beginners. 2, aim to that consistent daily dose of around 5 grams. 3, stay hydrated by drinking plenty of water. 4, be patient. Those results will come with consistent use over time. And 5, choose a reputable brand that ideally does third-party testing for quality and purity.
Fantastic. I think this has really cleared up a lot of the confusion around creatine. It sounds like it can be a valuable and surprisingly easy addition to a beginner's fitness routine.
Absolutely. I hope this deep dive has helped make creatine less intimidating and easier to understand. Whether you want to get stronger, recover faster, or build more muscle, creatine is a proven tool that can help you get there.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. You joined us to get a better handle on creatine, and hopefully we've achieved that.
Definitely.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Think about how using this well-researched supplement could be a smart way to support your fitness goals in the long run. It's not just about those initial gains. It's about making choices that will benefit your health and fitness for years to come. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.